Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to the Catholic Teacher Daily Message. I am your host, Jonathan Doyle. I am glad you are here. What would make me even more glad is if you would subscribe. Hit subscribe to this channel. It does make a difference. It makes the baby Jesus laugh out loud. True story. If you hit subscribe, the baby Jesus will be extremely pleased. Making him displeased, you do not want that on your conscience. Go and check out all the links under here. There's a whole bunch of good stuff. Friends, today I want to jump in. I'm going to share with you a great quote from Dr. Ryan Topping. Some of you would know he writes really well on Catholic education, and there's a really powerful quote that I want to jump in with, and let's get it done. No more need to waste time. Let's hear from Ryan Topping. Let's do it. The interesting question to ask is not whether 13 years of industrial education will equip a child to feed themselves. The interesting question to ask is whether we will have supplied them with a reason to live. Oh boy, where do we start? Regular viewers know I talk about the factory model of education all the time. I talk about the risk for us in Catholic schools is that we fall into the industrial methodology of education or the factory model of education. Conveyor belt, we ship the students in, we process them, we ship them out as inputs into the wider economic system. I know you don't do that. I know you don't think about education that way. But if you really come back and look at it from a structuralist point of view, I think you could argue that there's always a risk that that's what can happen. I think it is happening culturally. The question is how successfully Catholic schools are doing something different to that. You know, education as we know it really is. High schools didn't exist until the very early part of the 20th century, where changes in technology meant that young people didn't need to stay on farms in the United States as much. The cities were growing rapidly, the great urban centers of the US, and that required a different workforce, more clerical skills, more administrative skills. So we stopped just educating in elementary, primary schools. We started pushing kids into high school. So this kind of vast system, and some of you would also know that the educational system that we have is based almost entirely, did you know this, on the Prussian military system. The very first sort of major educationalists in the US in the late 19th century, early 20th century, based their schooling models on the Prussian military model. Bells, alarms, structures, lines, systems, rigid discipline. So there are some roots here that we need to be aware of. So I like how Dr. Topping talks about industrial education. So part of what I think we're doing culturally is we're going, hey, we just want to educate kids so they can feed themselves, so they're not a burden to society, and they can, find meaningful work and maybe raise a family. I mean, do you jump out of bed in the morning going, I can't wait to get in there and passionately work with these young people in the hope that the culminating, pinnacle of our educational journey together will be that they hopefully don't go to prison and that they can find some form of meaningful work. Now, friends, if your students don't go to prison and they do find meaningful work because of you, hey, that's a win. I'm the first to agree. That is a win. But I think we could do a little better, don't you? And this is what Ryan Topping's talking about. That if the goal is simply to input the inputs, process them and ship them out, and hopefully make them useful members of society, I think that's a pretty limited vision. And then he finishes his quote by saying, have we actually given them a reason to live? F.J. Sheed used to talk about this. He's seen as the greatest Catholic lay theologian of the last 100 years. He sort of said that, if our kids leave our schools with a love for Christ, a deep knowledge of his life, and a desire to go forward with that knowledge in their lives, they won't come to too much harm. If they haven't got that, all other excellences will not do them much good. So can you see what I'm getting towards here? What a great Catholic school is going to do is give young people a vision, a beautiful vision of reality itself. A vision of what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, what is noble, what is praiseworthy, what is worth doing with one's life. The value of contribution, the value of deep prayer, contemplation, beauty, art, music, literature, physical education, a way of seeing and treating other people, an openness to life. You see, these are the sorts of things that Catholic schools can do so remarkably, right? So my friend, that's it for today. Let us be aware of and resistant to the industrial method of education. Let us be wide open to the Christological dimension, to the dimension of human personhood and what it means to flourish as a human person made in the image of God, the Imago Dei, my friend, the Imago Dei. We are playing a much bigger game, my friend. If you are in Catholic education, you're at the big dance, right? You're in the big dance. You're at the big game here. And every young student's life is precious. And what an amazing thing that Almighty God himself himself has invited you personally to be part of that formation process. All right, please make sure you've subscribed. The links are here. If you'd like to book me to speak live to your staff in your diocese with your students, I do a huge amount of work with students. Coaching for Catholic Principles is under here and a whole bunch of other stuff. Go check it out. My name's Jonathan Doyle. This has been the Catholic Teacher Daily Message. Guess what? You and I, we're talking again tomorrow.